made up of three structures: the caudate, the putamen, and the globus pallidus. There's some images. You see that the basal ganglia are very deep and central. We have let's do it here, caudate, putamen, and globus pallidus. Together, the basal ganglia. Now, functionally, two major things to talk about. There's a major role in movement of the basal ganglia. Learning aspects of movement, as we'll talk about, but also uh, just the initiation of voluntary movement. Remember that because that relates to dopamine and Parkinson's disease. Dopamine we talked about, Parkinson's we will come back and talk about. But the basal ganglia are also in charge of the third kind of learning we're covering. Just as review, episodic learning and spatial navigation learning were hippocampal duties. Implicit learning is a duty of basal ganglia. Let's talk about three kinds of implicit learning. First, implicit learning. This is learning without knowing how you're learning, except to say, practice, repetition, slowly, I got it. But if I ask you, how do you ride a bike? How did you learn? There isn't a conscious experience, except to say, effort and practice. Procedural learning is what a lot of people might call muscle memory. But really, whenever you're learning a new movement or a new sequence of movements, you need the basal ganglia in order to advance that skill. Whether you're learning how to crawl, or dribble a basketball, or play the violin, these are all procedural skills. Only through practice and repetition will you get better. Social skills. Now, there are countless social skills. Many, not all, are learned implicitly. Slowly, through the years, through little glances from mom, an approval nod, or disapproving glance from dad. You stand a little too close to someone and they back off. You might not consciously notice that, but through repetition after repetition, you learn. When is it appropriate to reach over and touch someone on the elbow? Comfort them, tap them on the shoulder. When is that inappropriate? Elevator behavior is my favorite set of social skills because it's just so easy to see. Imagine if you were in the elevator and I came in and I just stood facing the back of the elevator. I mean, that's a strange behavior. You just might run out of there and freak out, and I wouldn't blame you. And countless other examples. I want to relate this back to our discussion of autism and the fact that they avoid faces. We talked about how it may be that the amygdala overactivity we saw in autism frightens them and directs them away from people's faces. But imagine the volumes of social skills training they're missing out on by not looking at faces. From infancy and on, just imagine how much social skills training they're missing out on. Certain aspects of language are also learned implicitly through the basal ganglia. This is a good reminder for me to say something I may have forgotten. We have to teach neuroscience piecemeal, one system or one area at a time. It's just the nature of education. But that might make you lose sight of the fact that the brain is an integrated network, and most challenges of life, like learning a language, like social skills, are going to require multiple learning systems. Language is a decent example. Grammatical structure, things like accents, things like the phenomena where to a novice ear, the language seems fast, but as you learn, it doesn't seem fast at all. What has changed? Basal ganglia has done a statistical processing of the language, and now you have an intuitive, implicit understanding. Without this, you're never going to be fluent in a language. Without the basal ganglia coming along, it will never be a natural, fluent language for you. But certain vocabulary words, you're going to need to rely on the good old hippocampus for that, right? So different uh, uh, brain systems are going to have to interact for many challenges of daily living.